Hi, I'm Paul Seal from codechair.co.uk. Welcome to the third episode of this series where I show you how to build a website with Umbraco V8. What I want to do in this episode to start with is just start with a couple of tips. So the first tip is to help you get this site set up in IIS, and it also helps you get it set up in IIS with HTTPS setup as well, so you can use locally on your development environment. You can use HTTPS with a certificate on your local machine as well. Now that might sound a bit daunting, and this makes it easier. So my colleague Matt from Moriyama, he's created this PowerShell script that makes it really easy to do. So if you just go to this link, github.com/Matthew07/IIS-builder. I'll put the link in the notes. If you go to this repo, and then what you want to do is you want to download this file here, so you can just click through to it, and then you can go to raw, and then right click and save as. And then if you go to, I'll just go into my code project. And then I'm going to put it in the web root of there, so iisbuilder.ps1. And I don't want to save it as text, I just want to save it as ps1. So .ps1, I'll change that to be all files. So it's iis-builder.ps1 and save. So that is the PowerShell script that we'll need. And then if I also go back to the repo, so do back on the browser, and then if I go into it, and you see this sample here, we need to just save this as a file called iisconfig.json. So if I go into the folder of the project, and then I go into web, and I do a new file, so I do a new text file, and I just call this the same as what is on his example. So that was iis-config.json. So that's iis-config.json. And then just delete the .text at the end. Are you sure? Yes. And then we'll edit this file. We'll just paste in what was in the sample there. So what site name do I want to call it? So I want to call it clean-blog. And the app pool, I want to call it the same. So this is going to create as a site in IIS, which is this here, IIS Internet Information Services Manager. So it's going to create as a site in here, and we can leave that there. Now this is something that I learned a while ago, and since joining Moriyama we've started using it on a lot of our sites, and that is using this using subdomains of .localtest.me. The good thing about localtest.me is that it goes to your local machine. So if you were to put anything, so if I do ping and then anything .localtest.me, it will come back and say it's pointing to my local machine. So that's really good for if you want to use it for your development environment. So now what I can do here is I can do clean-blog.localtest.me. So what this PowerShell script, so if I save this, and I'll just make sure that I've got the PowerShell script and this in the same root, and I've got it saved in this format, and I've just edited and put in clean blog there. What it's going to do is it's going to create the website for me in here, and it's going to create the secure certificate for me on my local machine as well, so I'll be able to run the site locally with HTTPS. So anyway, what we're going to do then is we're going to open up PowerShell in administrator mode, and we're going to, from this root of the site, if I just do cd and then paste that in there, we're going to just tell it to run the PowerShell. Now I'm already running as administrator, and I would normally just right click and run with PowerShell. So that's what I'd advise you to do. I'm not doing that because it messes up with my display capture when I do that. So I'm just going to try and do it this way. So if I just get the name of it, IIS Builder. So if I just do IIS-builder.ps1, hopefully it won't mess with my display settings. So that should have tried to run that. It's saying it wasn't found. Right, maybe I need to do ./IIS-Builder.ps1. There we go. So what that has done is that has created a website for me. If I refresh my sites now and I go into here, I've got clean-blog. If I go to my bindings, I've got it created here, so HTTP and HTTPS. And if I go in here, I've got an SSL certificate as well. So I can now go to my site with the HTTPS address clean-blog.localtest.me. If I go to that website address now, that will actually serve up the website at the root of it. So it will serve up what's in this folder here on that address. So that is allowing us to do that, and that's all thanks to Matt for writing this PowerShell script and then giving us this bit where we just edit our config. So yeah, that's Matt, who I work with at Moriyama, so that's thanks to him. If you just go to this address, github.com/Matthew07 IIS Builder, you will be able to use this as well. It's open source and free to use, so go and fill your boots. And look, now we can go to clean-blog.localtest.me and we've got our site where we left it last time. And also we can actually do HTTPS and visit the site as well. So now we're visiting a secure site and it's saying connection is secured and the certificate is valid. So that's quite useful when you're doing local development as well. So that's what I'll be using from now on throughout the rest of this. If you've had trouble with this, you can still just go to Visual Studio and just click on the web project and do Control F5, or you can do build debug and then start without debugging. So if you did have trouble with that, you can still continue with it. But I just wanted to show you that and the localtest.me trick as well, which is really handy. Saves you having to edit your host files. Okay, so now we've got that done. Let's look back at where we were after the last episode. So if we go into our master view, we can see that we put in all the HTML that we got from the theme, and we put it into that. And then we told it to render body, and that would then call the home template, because this home template inherits from master. And then that would then render out the HTML for that. And again, this is still all just hard coded in, apart from the one page title that we had there. So what we're going to do with this episode is we're just going to sweep up all of this and put them into separate partials for things like the navigation and the footer. And we'll also set up to use client dependency for things like the CSS. Okay, so first of all then, we can make a start with the navigation. So when I talk about putting them into partials, what I mean is we can grab this navigation and we can put it into a separate view. If one thing that's quite annoying with Visual Studio is if you was to right click and do add and then do a view, it will add a view, but what it will also do is it will add a load of packages as well. It will add a modernizer, bootstrap, and other things to do with this MVC. It will add other folders as well, just because I created a view. I don't want to do that. So a quick way that I've found of doing that is actually just if you either right click and copy or just drag, control and drag that over to that, and that will create a copy. And then what I'm going to do is just rename this. So I'm going to call this navigation and then press enter. And then I'm just going to get rid of all the contents from here and just press delete. So that's just a quick way to get around that, because Visual Studio can be annoying. I'm just in this top line, I'm just going to do inherits Umbraco view page. And then if we go back here and go to the master, I'm going to take this navigation. So all the markup from here, Control and X, and then I'm going to paste that into here. So now the navigation has gone out of master. Oh, and then where it was, I'm just going to do this. Oops. Do at html.partial, and I'm just going to say, put in the path of the partial, views, partials, navigation, .cshtml. So we're slicing up this. Now that's complaining about that navigation.cshtml. So I don't know why it's complaining about, oh, I didn't put an S on views. So I've got ReSharper installed and it tells me if it's not there. And because I've got ReSharper installed, I can just press Control and then click on this and it will actually go to that view for me. So that now should work. And also I like to use Control KD to tidy up my my code. So that just formats the indents for me properly. So if I go back to my website and just refresh, it should still have the navigation and everything like that. So it's still got that on there. So that's good. So we've moved the navigation out. Next thing I want to do is move the footer. So I'm going to keep the HR and I'm going to have that as part of the footer. So again, I'm just going to make a copy of navigation. So I'm going to hold Control and drag it up to partials folder and then press F2 to rename, just do footer and then press enter. Go back to the master, grab the footer markup, go back to footer and then paste it in there. And then I'm going to go back to master and then I'll just copy this line here that I had. And I'm going to put that as footer. Then if I go back to my website and refresh, we'll find that the footer stays on as well. So just have a look. Yep, so we have the footer as well. So that's all fine at the moment. So we've moved those out into separate partials and that cleans up your templates no end. And then the other thing that we're going to do as well is we're going to use something called client dependency. And what that does is it minifies your JavaScript and CSS for you, and it also allows you to just require certain ones from different views as well. So let's say if I just needed this clean blogs min.css only on one of my views, I can tell it to require that on one view, but then on another view I can require something else as well. Right, okay, so what we're going to do now then is we're going to tell it that we're going to use client dependency. So we'll do at using client dependency.core.mvc. Okay, and then that will allow us to, for all of these different CSS and JavaScript references that we need, up here we can just define what we need. So we'll do html.require and then we can say CSS, and then we put in here, we can say, first of all, the first CSS file that we need is this one, which is the bootstrap. So I'll put the leading slash there so that it starts from the root of the site. So I'm doing require the bootstrap one, and I'll just copy and paste that line a few times because there's about 6 different ones that we're using here. So we've got that, and then we'll copy the next one down as well, and we'll paste that in here. Just make sure we leave the leading slash on. So that's the all min CSS for Font Awesome. And then we've got these ones as well, which you can also do. So this is the font style sheet. And then we've got the next font one as well. And then we also have the clean blog as well. So for now we've just got 5. So that's the CSS. And then we can also tell it that we require the JS as well. And then for this, we just need to go down to here. So we want to tell it that we require jQuery, and that came through with the static file. You know how we downloaded the build, so we got a folder called vendor, and in there it had jQuery and things like that. But you could, if you wanted to, like we're doing with this, you can use one that's hosted on a CDN somewhere. So that was the jQuery. Then we want to do the same for the Bootstrap Mint, so we'll just, I think there's just 2 more. Copy that, paste that in there, remembering to leave the leading slash, and then the clean blog one as well. So we've put those into here, and again, this is just to bundle it all up for us, and it's a good practice to start with from the beginning, rather than having just each one being an individual file. This will just download this like one CSS file and one JavaScript file if you do it this way. So that's okay defining them, but they need to be rendered somewhere. So what we do to render them is where we have we've got the head. What we can do in here, we can do at html.render CSS here. So we'll tell it to put all the CSS here. So this means that we can remove all of these because we don't need them now. They're going to be rendered with that. And then the same with this one, we can delete that and we can just say at html.render.js here. So now our view looks a lot slimmer. So we've got render CSS, render JS under here at the bottom of the body, and we're defining here which ones we want to include. So let's save all of those, and give it a rebuild, and just see if that has worked or if it's caused us any issues. Yeah, so it looks fine to me, and if we just doubly sure, if we press F12, and it's just complaining to say it's not found the fav icon, but that's fine, we've not put a fav icon in yet. So yeah, that's worked. So we now have ourselves set up with our master template so that we can carry on now with what we need to do in the next video to do all the other things in terms of the different document types and templates and things like that. We've just paved the way, made it a bit easier. So we've set up our website as a website on our machine. We've set it up with SSL. We've split our master view into separate partials for the navigation and footer, and then the body in the middle there. We've set it up so that it will render the CSS and JavaScript out in there. One thing just on this as well, just so you can understand a bit about this. So if we go into web config and then we go down to debugging, let's just see, debug faults. So at the moment we've got debug set to false. So if we right click in here and do view page source, we'll see that the link here, where this is basically the output from when we've said render the scripts. So it first of all it says dependency handler, and then it's got this there, and then for the fonts it relatively links to those. It links to those at those HTTPS endpoints. But for the JavaScript, it's just got one dependency handler there because they were all local files. Now, if we was to turn off that, debugging and set it to true. Sorry, it's turn on debugging and set it to true. And then we did the same again. We reload the page. So if I view page source, and then we go here, we've got individual ones like to vendor bootstrap, etc. So, and the local CSS file, and then the scripts as well. So that's just showing you that if you have debugging set to true, then you can do that. And if you wanted to see what it'd be like when it's bundled, then you can set debugging to false. And another thing as well, so that's useful for when you are working locally, you probably want debugging set to true. And another thing as well with this is if you do have any issues, you might need to increment the client dependency version number. And what that will do is it will just make it so that it's not caching that file at that client dependency query string that it had before. So by changing this number, it makes it generate a new query string so that it doesn't cache in the browser for you. So that's client dependency. That's the site setup as a site on your local machine with HTTPS. So yeah, we'll move on in the next video with the different document types and things like that and compositions. So I hope you liked the video. If you did and you do want to say thank you, you don't have to, there's no obligation, but you can go to codeshare.co.uk/coffee and you've got an opportunity there if you want to buy me a coffee and say thanks. Thanks to those that already have. It's much appreciated. I've enjoyed the coffees. And also, if you do want to carry on watching the series, please click on like and subscribe to my channel and click on the bell notifications. Leave in the comments if you've got any feedback or questions. And I look forward to seeing you in the next video. All right, thanks for watching. Bye.